Hey, good morning. This is Wednesday. I hope you are doing well this morning. Thanks for joining with us this morning for another one of my morning reflections. You're getting a lot of me in your life right now, so we really need to pray for the COVID pandemic to end soon. That way, you will have a little bit less Andy in your life, and that's a win probably for all of us. So thanks for hanging out with me. I've got to be doing something like this because I got a lot to say, and Tim was laughing at me one day. He said, "How long could you talk in Bible study if nobody ever cut you off?" I'm like, Tim, I don't know. That's a good question. I think I would just go till I stopped, and I don't know what that looks like. It's like the old joke always, if you're going to a church that has two services, always go to the early service. Because the early service, the preacher has to be done in time to get you to Sunday school. There's no time limit, man. You can just go to get done. I always joke that one day at 11 o'clock, I'm just going to go till I get tired. And I don't know what that looks like, and I don't think anybody wants that to happen. Of course, I think back to the words of Dr. Bryson when I was in Mississippi College. He used to always say, "Boys, remember, soul can only absorb, but the rear end can endure." So nobody ever leaves church going, "Boy, I wish that had been longer." Nobody ever says that. So I try to keep these videos at a certain length, so just enough to get you going in the morning without overwhelming. So today, some of the suggested readings we're in Second Corinthians right now. A great First Corinthians gets all the attention from Paul's 2 Corinthian letters. I don't want to say all the attention, but First Corinthians has so many things that we've wrestled with for so often. It has all the talks about love and the gifts of the Spirit and things like that. So sometimes, at least for me, I tend to forget as much about Second Corinthians. So today, we're going to be reading from Second Corinthians chapter 3. I want to read to you one of the suggested passages is Second Corinthians 3, and then I want to read to you verses 4. This is 2 Corinthians 3 4 through 6, where Paul writes these words. Paul says this: "Such is the confidence that we have through Christ towards God. Not that we are competent of ourselves to claim anything is coming for us. Our competency is from God, who has made us competent to be ministers of the new covenant, not of letter, but of spirit. For the letter kills, but the spirit gives life." I love that passage about our competency comes from God. Because sometimes when we face tasks or challenges or struggles or worries, we can feel like we don't measure up. We aren't competent. I know that I've struggled in this season to feel competent. I mean, I missed the pandemic class in seminary, y'all. I mean, I didn't, it's a different ball game than what we were trained for. So there's times that if preachers are going to be honest, we all struggle with, okay, are we doing the right thing here? Are we handling this the right way? Are we making the right decisions? It really is a struggle. You want to make sure you're doing the right thing for your people and for your church. And so, yeah, you can feel very, very unqualified or incompetent even. I know that I have many times. Well, not just many times the last few weeks, but for much of my ministry, I've shared with you before. That's where I wear my collar in times like this, is a reminder of God's presence in my life and God's calling in my life and God's ability in my life. That God is the one that works within me. So I love what Paul says, that our competency doesn't come from ourselves, but our competency comes from God. And that's a great reminder for us today to remember that our strength and our competency and our ability when we face tasks aren't from our strength, but they're from God's strength. And so I think that's why it's important for us as we go throughout our daily life to give ourselves the spaces and the places and the times to hear God's voice. Because if we aren't listening to God's voice, if we aren't listening to what God wants to say to us, if we aren't listening to how God wants to speak to us, it would be very easy for us to miss what God wants to do. And then when we're flying blind or flying by the seat of our own pants, then we're getting our strength from ourselves and not from God. And I think it's so important. It's so important to remember that our strength comes from God, our ability comes from God, our our joy comes from God. It all comes from God. Um, when I was in the Delta, I was serving my little churches up there, and I had as a preacher, there's certain purchases or certain things you get for the first time that you're very proud of. I was proud of my first. I got my first robe. My first robe I ever got, my mother-in-law made it for me. She hemmed it for me herself. Now the robes and I still use it a good amount, especially when I do an outside wedding because it's very thin and very breathable. The robes I have now were robes that were given to me one robe was purchased by a church member in my previous church who wanted to make sure I had the right kind of robe to come to Madison, so he bought me my nice one of my nice white robes, and then the other robes were robes that were given to me by family of Sam Morris, one of my mentors and dear guides in ministry. So I'm thankful for each of these. But one of the first purchases I got that I was really proud of in ministry was when I got my first paten and chalice, my first communion set. I was so proud of them. Oh my goodness, I was just I was undone. I was so proud of these things. Um, Most churches have their own communion elements, the little glasses or the silver trays or the paten and chalice, these things. So most churches have them, but most clergy have their own as well. And so I bought my first one. I was very excited to have it. I couldn't wait to take it with me to church and take it with me to show it off, and I was so pumped about it. And so this my little churches. I had three churches I served on this circuit. I was a circuit rider, and I would go from Lynn, started off at 8:45, then Lynn at 10. I'm sorry, Lytton at 8:45, Lynn at 10, and then Boyle would close at 11. And so I'd make the circuit every Sunday morning. And so it was a communion Sunday, and I wanted to use my new element, my new paten and chalice. So I was so excited to go to church and use these elements, use these new tools for ministry. And I got them. You had to drive fast when you're in these little churches, so I drove really fast. I apologize to law enforcement officers. I tried to obey the law, but I had to get to church. So I was driving, and I got out of the car. I was running a little late. I needed to go set up for communion. And I went back in the back of my car to grab my paten and chalice. And when I went to pick it up, I dropped them, broke them. I didn't break them. They were badly cracked. So there I had these two new tools for ministry, paten and chalice, that were badly chipped, badly broken, usable still, but disfigured. And I was frustrated. I was mad. At first, I spent money on it. I didn't have a lot of resources at that point. I was mad that I broke something, and then I had these two elements that were so beautiful that I so looked forward to using in ministry, and now they were broken and disfigured. So I was really frustrated. And so as I was going into the church, I felt a voice from the Lord. Told me, he said, Andy, you're frustrated. Yeah, this paten, this chalice are chipped and broken and imperfect now. But these are imperfect vessels that I'm going to use to give the people of this church grace in this moment. Just like you're an imperfect vessel that I'm going to use throughout your ministry to give people grace. And that word from the Lord always stuck with me, that I'm an imperfect vessel. Anyone who spent any amount of time with me in any way can tell you that I am an imperfect vessel. Only good things about me are Jesus and my family. I am an imperfect vessel. But God, through His grace, has still somehow used me to provide grace to others. No matter how incompetent I may feel or how inadequate I may feel, God's grace abounds. Today, this God of all grace wants you to do the same thing. He wants to use you today in some way, shape, or form to provide grace. You may feel incompetent. You may feel unqualified. You may feel like you can't. You may feel like there's too many things you've done wrong. You may feel like there's too many mistakes you've made. You may feel like you don't have any gifts and graces. You may feel like you can't do it. Friends, the same God that took a broken paten and chalice and used it to provide grace to hundreds of people throughout the years. The same God who took an imperfect vessel from Bogota to Mississippi to provide grace to thousands of people throughout these last few years. The same God that no matter where you are right now wants to use you. You're not incompetent. You're not ungifted. You're blessed and called by God to a holy and high purpose. And this morning, He wants to use you. Your competency doesn't come from you, it comes from God. Your ability doesn't come from you, it comes from God. Your strength doesn't come from you, it comes from God. And God never fails. And God is perfect. And God is always at work. So don't trust in yourself for your own strength or your own ability. You may feel completely unprepared for whatever faces you today. You may in your mind feel there's no way possible that you can do the things that are lying in front of you right now, but you can. You can do it, not through your own strength, but through God. Your competency comes from Him. So trust in Him today. Through His grace, you got this. You got this. Our competency is not from within ourselves. It's always from God. So rejoice today. Be encouraged. Be encouraged. God's got this. God's got you, and God's got this. So today, no matter where you find yourself, be encouraged. Because your ability and your competency is not yours, it's God's. He's got this. Be an encouragement today. Y'all, I'm going to encourage you. You encourage somebody. Go encourage somebody in your family, in your work. Text them, call them, email them. Reach out to 3 people today, y'all. Be salt and light. Make a difference for the kingdom. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day today. Reach out to me, call me, text me, email me, Facebook me, Zoom me. You know, we all Zoom now. So connect with me. I'd love to do what I can do to help you in this moment. I'm praying for you. Love you. See you in the morning.